Hello all and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls Novaria, where today we are completing a little bit more of the T-Bone Junction Nox's Secret Armory DLC. But along with this, I also wanted to talk a little bit about Borderlands and specifically the planet of Pandora. Now, if you have played the entirety of the series, you probably understand the majority of what is going on Pandora at any given time. But Borderlands 3 actually kind of pushes the envelope as far as what Pandora is. Pandora, for lack of better terminology, is a vault in and of itself. Its entire job was to be the holding cell of sorts for the destroyer. This planet encapsulates this Cthulhu monster, if you will, simply to allow the people of Pandora, or rather the people of the universe, some degree of safety from a world-devouring monstrosity. Because of what Pandora is, it developed a cult-like identity where it was believed that there was a vault, a trove of alien technology that was intended to give whomever it was that found it fame, power, glory, you name it. The goal of Pandora, being this effective jail cell, was not what the stories made it out to be. As a result of this lack of a communication around it, the individuals that eventually inhabit Pandora are seeking out, or aim to seek out, this vault, this trove of alien treasure, because in the minds of the people, that is something that it should be sought out. The mysteries of the universe need to be understood, and that is one thing that we don't have. First of all, I kind of like this explanation because it takes the onus away from you, the player, to understand everything immediately. But it also kind of just explains why everybody is kind of clueless about what Pandora is actually intended to be. The goal of Pandora's original vault, the one opened in Borderlands 1, is that every 100 years, the vault is supposed to open in order to feed the destroyer. If it is not fed in any capacity, it will become more violent and more likely to break loose. I kind of like this explanation, because a Cthulhu monster or world-destroying entity that it is, of course it's not going to want to be imprisoned for centuries at a time without having a bite to eat. Of course it's going to get violent. But it also, in a way, explains why the life on Pandora is the way it is. If you look at the creatures of Pandora, the skags, the spider ants, the rat, the... well, not the threshers, because those came from Elpis, but virtually every born on Pandora species is intended or is incredibly violent or destructive in nature. The reality of this is that the creatures of Pandora unironically are adapting to a threat that's right nearby. Whether it is the effect of the destroyer manipulating DNA or not, we can't necessarily be sure. What we do know, however, is that once Pandora was formed, it was formed as a planet of similar nature to Earth. Now, this is kind of a lesser important statement, because Pandora is mentioned under numerous circumstances to have an ancient sea. Now, part of this is just the sunken sea to the north end of the highway here, but can also end up with the Scarlet's DLC in Borderlands 2, dealing with a dried up sea and pirate theme. Again, not the end of the world, but it is of note, right? Pandora, however, very quickly began to drain of its resources, especially natural ones like ore, items like water, like the vegetation. Very little of it actually remains, at least in the era of Borderlands 1. That, of course, to me, showcases that a lot of the resources of Pandora are slowly but surely being sapped away by the Destroyer at its core. That it, on subsequent, we'll call it refueling opportunities, slowly but surely sap Pandora of its resources. This desert planet also goes through cycles of hibernation. Now, this is one that I kind of find interesting from a perspective of the dull scientists here. Because at the beginning, before the Vault Hunters ever arrived, dull scientists had approached Pandora with the goal of, hey, we are going to try and find the vault. We're going to go mining for it. We're going to get most of our labor force from criminals that we don't have to pay, and so on and so forth. It was all about money. It was all about power. The Dahl Corporation noticed very early on that the beasties of Pandora, when they came out of hibernation, were hungry, were devastating, were typically armored, and had some level of alternative strength that made stuff like the Skags and the Rack of Pandora just that much more devastating, that much more dangerous than what we as Vault Hunters or players would be accustomed to. It was more dangerous than what the individuals of the Dahl Corporation were accustomed to. And apparently, according to what I understand of the lore, they came out of what would be decades-long hibernation, possibly as a direct result of the... whatchamacallit? The Destroyer's reawakening. I don't necessarily have a specific statement on that, but I will say there's at least something there for it. Pandora itself as a vault was intended to have a key. Now, if you look at the lore of Borderlands 1, 2, and the pre-sequel, there is actually quite a significant number of checks and balances here. The first is that the Borderlands pre-sequel had the vault on Elpis is the key to Pandora. Pandora is effectively a play on Pandora's box, that there is demons, that there are pain and suffering hidden within. But at the same time, the lure of potential treasure, the lure of technology, drove people to test the waters, to see exactly what it is that they could potentially get out of Pandora if given the chance. Borderlands kind of plays with the idea of the villains of the story being greedy, being power hungry, or simply that they have a level of hubris that makes it so that they as characters almost seem invincible to repercussions on Pandora. This is something I'm actually seeing a lot more frequently in video games as of late. That entities or powers that be see themselves as infallible or untouchable. I kind of like this general vibe, mostly because I also like the idea that if we believe that we are untouchable, if we believe that there is nothing that can stop us, if we have effectively the hubris and the technology to do whatever the heck we want. Why wouldn't we at least try? I believe that is part of human nature. If you look at how we exist, humans have a good habit of going through and terraforming, of controlling our surroundings. Look at our cities, our towns, even how we do our farming. Every single group out there on this entire planet has some level of controlling their surroundings, or making use of their surroundings. That is a human trait. To be able to make use of what came before us through the form of technology, theoretically could give humanity more of a leg up. The enticing nature of the vaults means that the calamari that is the destroyer was too good of a thing to pass up. And the main threat of Borderlands 1 being this plate of calamari, it says a lot about what it is that we as humans are capable of, but also what it is that we tend to do if given the chance. Hi, Skyscraper. Anyways, getting back on track, I suppose, Borderlands 1 kind of ends with the destroyer having been resealed within the planet. But it didn't have a chance to recoup. So, in my mind, it's pretty well, that's it, that's all, right? Borderlands 2 has the Awakening of the Warrior. Borderlands pre-sequel has the effective key to Pandora's box. And so, we end up with this vault having been nearly opened on a couple separate occasions.
Good. You're here.
We do get very little information on what Pandora is outside of it being a vault in and of itself. And so, for me, I kind of like the idea of what they're trying to accomplish with this, but it is also something that just exists in my mind. It's not perfect, it's not terrible, but it's not ideal either. Overall, we do end up with Pandora effectively disappearing. That it's no longer the focus of Borderlands 4. And I kind of like that. I think getting away from the setting of this wasteland was a good call. But why is it that Borderlands 1 also has a whatchamacallit? Borderlands 1 and 2 almost take place on different planets for how vastly different these two worlds are. Now, I'm going to be kind of pointing the finger at Borderlands 2 and saying this game was just built different. It was intended to be bigger, grander than what came before, right? And in part, I think that is the bulk of the statement here. It is simply bigger and more than what came before it. But Borderlands 2 also vastly outdoes what Borderlands 1 does in terms of its storytelling. It vastly outdoes Borderlands 1 in terms of functionality. It vastly outdoes Borderlands 1 in terms of world building. So in this way, Borderlands 2 being in a more verdant paradise comparatively to Borderlands 1 is perfectly fine. I prefer the world of Borderlands 2 to Borderlands 1 just because Borderlands 1 kind of just exists. It is a desert planet and that's all it is. It's a wasteland. It's a mess. And that in and of itself kind of explains a lot about Borderlands one's both success and failure. Now, part of what makes Borderlands 1 a bit more of a struggle in terms of identity and world building is in part, I think, because of what the original game was intended to be. Now, this is conjecture, it is an understanding based on a little bit of hearsay. But effectively, the original plan for Borderlands 1 was that it was going to be a Wasteland-style shooter. This makes sense. It was intended to be something on par with something like Battlefield and Call of Duty. It was intended to be incredibly serious. It was meant to be in competition with other major franchises. However, during the development of the game, a lot of what made Borderlands 1's identity at the time didn't really work out the way they had hoped. And so, we end up with this kind of weird in-between, where they changed a lot of what Borderlands was intended to be kind of in the last few minutes. A lot of the storyline remained relatively similar, but a lot of the art style of Borderlands 1 shifted to a slightly more cartoony aesthetic. Now, I think this cartoony aesthetic was actually to the benefit of Borderlands as a whole. It gave it an identity outside of its shooter, of effectively being a shooter, but also gave more to latch onto. It had a bit more slapstick comedy, especially in the form of Borderlands 1's DLC, and they really leaned into it with Borderlands 2. Something that I really wish we could get more of. Like, don't get me wrong, Borderlands 2 is a very, very hard game to top, especially in this genre. But Borderlands 2 also simply exists at this point in time. I don't really feel that it reaches the heights it was intended to reach very easily at this time. If I could be absolutely frank with the viewership here, Borderlands 1, 2, pre-sequel, 3, 4, etc., they're pushing the envelope on what Borderlands could be. And I think a lot of us as players are stuck on, well, Borderlands 2 was great, therefore we need more Borderlands 2. And I think a lot of the developers were even stuck on Borderlands 2 was great, and it sold well, so we should make more Borderlands 2. Without fully understanding what it was about Borderlands 2 that made it great. Now, Borderlands pre-sequel and 3, they pushed too hard. They thought too much about the comedy aspect, and while they did intend, and in fact made pretty decent shooters altogether, Borderlands 3 and the pre-sequel didn't quite land the same way. I think in part because Borderlands 3 or 2, pre-sequel and 3 didn't fully get it. They didn't push as hard as they could, nor do I think that I believe they pushed too hard at the same time. They pushed in the wrong way for the comedic side. A lot of what made Borderlands 2 stick out had to do with characters. Character development, characters really showcasing who they were in a more fundamental way. But if you were to take Handsome Jack out of the equation in its entirety, he is a very different character in the pre-sequel than he was in 2. Why? Well, pre-sequel was developing this character into who he would become in 2. But you talk about it as if you were to actually sit down and look at the character from a fundamental core in Borderlands 2 versus pre-sequel, they don't match up at all. Even the later version of Handsome Jack at the end of the pre-sequel, who is sarcastic, he's upset, he's easy to frustrate type of character, that all fits. But you end up with the character in Borderlands 2, he's like, oh yeah, I have so much money that I just decided to blow a whole bunch of it on a horse made of diamonds, named it Butt Stallion. It's very much a different vibe, very much a different character. It is an individual who does what he does because he can. And maybe that's oversimplifying a lot of it. Probably is. But I do like this version of Borderlands 2's Handsome Jack more than Borderlands 1. Or pre-sequel, sorry. And if you look at the franchise as a whole, the characters that stick out, the characters that the players enjoy, are often side characters, are often villains. But with certain characters like Handsome Jack, he's with you every single step of the way. He is not just an obstacle, he is also a guide. And I think that makes him very unique. If you look at the Children of the Vault in Borderlands 3, yeah, they exist, yeah, they're villains. But for me, the two of them don't really... They don't have the same vibe, the same energy to them, and they don't have as much to do with the overarching goals of the storyline as Handsome Jack. And Handsome Jack had so much to do with the storyline that Borderlands 2 without Jack is not Borderlands 2 at all. This is kind of the conundrum that we run into. One of the things that I think holds Borderlands 1 back is the villains. See, I'm going to be the person who plays a little bit of devil's advocate here. Borderlands 1 has several villains. Several identifiable individuals that you could say, this guy is the bad guy. But Nine Toes has next to no information on him. He is just an underling of Sledge. Same thing with Bonehead. Same thing with the Roid Rage Psycho. Sledge, you'd think, is more intimidating or there was more to him. But no, he's just the strongest bandit out there. Or out in this region. There's no rhyme or reason to why he does what he does other than the fact that he can. And there's no... He's still in the midst of a clan war. He is still fighting tooth and nail to get his power. He is still fighting for whatever comes his way. Right? Cool. So, Sledge is a big bad evil guy fighting for his right to be in Pandora. Perfect. And then you fight him, and he's gone. There's nothing to deal with him. Mad Mel shows up for one region and is defeated by Vault Hunters, and that's all there is to it, right? Congratulations, Mad Mel is defeated. You can now enter the Rusts. Cool. So you go to the Rusts, and lo and behold, there's really nothing else out there outside of Crom's Canyon. So you defeat Crom. Well, who's left? Baron Flint. And of all of these individuals, Baron Flint has the most characterization because at least he talks to you as a player. He acknowledges your existence in a more of a way than you must be bonked now. He fights back and he's, well, come on up, don't let the... I wouldn't want it to be known that Baron Flint is anything less than hospitable. Like, he's very much... He's a status-driven individual. There is more to him than the basics of, I am strong, therefore bonk. Crom, yeah, he stole the vault key piece from the Crazy Earl. Cool. That's it. That is all we have to go on with Chrom. At least when it came to Borderlands 2, when you fought individuals that were not Handsome Jack, like Wilhelm, for example, there was a story behind that character. And even if it was just, hey, Big Bad Evil Guy is an underling of Handsome Jack, well, at least you have an understanding of where they came from, who they are, and what their motives are in some capacity. But you do not get that with a lot of the individuals in the franchise as a whole. Borderlands 1 is notoriously bad for that. But let's call a spade here. We do get a little taste of what could be Borderlands villains system in Borderlands 1. We get the 3 DLCs, or the 3 main DLCs. Borderlands 1's DLCs have 3 main antagonists. Dr. Ned, who is totally not Dr. Zed in disguise, or with a mustache on. You have, General Knox from the Atlas Corporation. And you have Claptrap, who is a rogue asset of the Hyperion Corporation. Each of these 3 individuals do something to build up the world of Borderlands 1 in ways that the main story of Borderlands 1 simply could not, or did not. And I want to be very honest with you. As far as the DLCs go, these 3 villains make the DLCs much more enjoyable from a plot perspective. But, in the same vein, some of the design decisions of the DLCs don't land the way I think they were intended to. Borderlands, as I've said, has a little bit of a identity crisis. And one thing that they were trying to do in the development of these 3 DLCs is make them larger, so as to allow the players to feel as though if you bought it, it was worthwhile. And I don't want anybody thinking that this is necessarily a bad thing. You want to have what you buy make sense and be valuable to you as a player. Okay? However, Borderlands 1 had a problem when it came to the scale of these 3 DLCs. The first one that was released, to my knowledge, was the Jacob's Cove DLC, the Zombie Island of Dr. Ned. And honestly, Jacob's Cove DLC, it worked, but it didn't. They attempted to make it all about trying to find something. Find a means of defeating Dr. Ned, stopping the zombie outbreak. Life is good, right? And in the majority of it, you are working around a hub zone. The primary hub zone of it being Jacob's Cove itself, with I believe there's like 5-6 branching zones off of that, with one other area having a secondary zone attached to it, being the sawmill. So, yes, they actually did a really good job trying to keep that one condensed. But then you have a couple of the side missions, notably the Brains side missions, which, on their own, fun little side objectives. See how many headshots you and your friends can get. That is the entire point of the Brains side objectives, is headshots, headshots, headshots. And completing all of them, good for you, by the way, if you did, because that is a very long-winded challenge to complete. But, in the same vein, if you have completed this task in any capacity whatsoever, then you're probably very, very tired of zombies. Because at that point, generally you're at the second to last layer of this challenge before you beat the final boss of the DLC. So you gotta go back in and go to every single region a second time, specifically to get more headshots so that you can finish off this side mission. That's effectively what it is. It's padding. It's longevity for the sake of longevity without fully understanding there might be a better way to do this. The DLC of General Knox does this again, but in a way that is ironically even worse. So the idea behind the General Knox's extended runtime is that you end up with side missions given to you by Marcus. And Marcus says, hey, I want you to clean up some more of the Lance Troopers. I want you to collect some more cores. I want you to defeat some more of these guys. And the more you defeat, the more opportunities you have to go back into General Knox's arena and fight him. So, cool. That seems reasonable enough. The goal being the cyclical nature of going back in and getting more loot, because your greed precedes you. Right? That is kind of one of the things the Vault Hunters of Borderlands 1 are known for, is greed, is a desire for money and power, and of course, legends of your greed have to be passed on to the next generation, right? So, you go in and do your side missions. You get more money. You get more stuff. And sure, you've got like 9 stuffs and you're ready to go on to the next mission, right? But every time that you have to go back and raid the armory, it's a 5-minute drive one way. And that might not seem like much, but it gets to the point where when you get to the final run, you are tired of driving that distance. You are tired of driving from the center T-Bone Junction to the north end or to the south. The only one of these DLC that I think actually nails the scope is the Claptrap DLC. Because each region, by and large, is based on a hub zone. There are a couple small regions attached to each, but your hub zone handles the majority of it. If I recall, there are the center and 5 side zones. Each side zone leads to another minor objective, a couple of small boss enemies, and that's pretty much it, right? When you are done with a region, you are done with a region. You don't have to go back, you don't have to fight with it, you don't have to worry about those side regions ever again. And so, you technically could go back if you want some experience from fighting the crawl worms or something. That is very much a possibility. But you also just as easily could go to the other end and continue the main plot. Now, let's be real. I'm level 43 right now. I am way over-leveled for this region, and for probably the rest of the game. But, theoretically, if I wanted to go back, turn around, fight a certain entity again, or simply power level to see if I can get some good gear, that is well within my rights and ability to do so. Hello, Skyscraper. I can't get you from above, so I guess I'll get you from below. Okay. Skyscraper as a boss is okay. Skyscraper as a boss when you don't have guns is painful. Now, there are a couple bosses that, when you go to fight them, I fully expect that you are not going to beat them on your first try. Skyscraper, if we were taking guns out of the equation, is one of them. It is effectively a giant daddy long leg spider that absolutely demolishes you as a player. Like, we're talking could one or two shot you. Oh man. Oh well, I expected as much. Now the nice thing about Skyscraper as an entity is that if you fight him, its HP remains low. So you can very easily just teleport back and fight him a second time, using the damage you dealt the first time to deal a little bit more the second. And with that, I think I'm going to be shutting her down for the day because my voice is starting to hurt. If you like what you see, hear, etc., let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. While you're there, if you could leave a like, a subscribe, or maybe a topic for future discussion, I'd love to hear it. Until next time, I hope you all have a good one.